Hello and welcome back to Men of the Prize, the podcast. Of course, I am your host, Harvey, and I hope your week is great. I hope you're doing well. This episode it feels almost personal to me to a degree because we're going to be talking about a little bit of a different subject, a little bit of a different one, maybe a little nuance to it. If you've listened or watched this podcast, you know that I'm a proud parent. In particular, I am a girl dad. I've got 3 of them. And we're going to be talking about a serious subject when it comes to our daughters. I don't even want to talk about anything else. I just want to get into it. My guest is somebody who knows about being a girl dad and what we men can do to protect them. So let's bring in my guest, introducing Daryl Dudley. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing excellent, Harvey. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the work that you do to help brothers be better.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I love doing it. It's something that we need, but we're going to talk about something a little different. Let's get into the bio. Of course, it is my pride and joy to print out a bio so I can read it to my guests. Let's get to it. Daryl S. Dudley is a leading voice for the rights of girls and women to be able to move about in a world without fear of violence. He is the founder of the nonprofit organization She's My Daughter, a movement of concerned men that explores comprehensive strategies aimed at creating safe communities for women and empowering survivors of violence to heal from their past harms and live life positively. He envisions a world without rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking. Daryl holds a BA in marketing. Prior to establishing She's My Daughter, Daryl worked in his family's real estate investment firm and owned a music education company. In his free time, Daryl likes to retreat to playing the piano and writing music. The greatest joy of his life is his wife of 31 years. Congratulations, by the way, 31 years. That's what's up. Gidget Maria, his 2 children, and 5 grandchildren. That's a bio. That is a life well lived. I'm glad I got to read that. I asked the men, my guests, what it's like to hear their accomplishments read back to them. I will ask you the same. What's it like hearing what you've done and knowing it's still just the beginning and there's obviously more work to do?
You know, it's really humbling that I've got to do so many things, and I've got to be in the position that I am to just to be a voice for so many who are voiceless, but also to create a society where my daughters and granddaughters, your daughters will have a better future because of the work that we do, and it's just powerful. With all the accolades, all the business things, and all the nonprofit side, it's just great to have a family and to be married, to have children, and also to be in this new position of being a grandfather 5 times over.
Okay.
Something special about that relationship, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I got to be a grandfather when I was relatively young,
Yes,
still in
understood.
my mid-50s, and so to be able to play with them, enjoy them, and when they get a bit too rambunctious, send them back home.
That's what's. Oh, one day I will enjoy being a grandparent, just
Yeah.
hanging out with them and load them up with all the sugar and the candy and stuff, and then here you go back to your mom. I'm that
There you
first
go.
time I get to do it, I'm gonna be happy. Like, oh yeah, what happened? Oh, you want another cookie? You want some ice cream? Good, good. Oh, time to go. Like, yeah, this is what I had to deal with you. So
Right.
I know that joy. Um, and I think why I'm so excited about this conversation is the joy that we get to, the time we get to spend with these kids, our children, grandchildren, whomever. It's important that we relish it
Yeah.
because there's a lot of fathers who lose this, who don't have the benefit of their kids around them, particularly their daughters. Just child trafficking, sex trafficking, all these terrible things that happen to kids all around the world. Can you, obviously, this is something that you know more about. Can you give us a bit of information about the trouble of sex trafficking and children trafficking? Tell us a little bit about it. Get started.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most horrendous atrocities really known to man. We just know, just in terms of slavery, just it's just an awful situation to be in, where you have no control of your whereabouts, where you're going, what you have to do during the day. There's no sense of freedom, and that's just got to be something that's just, like I say, I've never experienced it myself, but it's the most heinous atrocity that I know of. And some of the things about human trafficking is that only about 5% of those who get caught in that particular trade, if you will, get rescued. So we have millions and millions, not necessarily over in Eastern Europe or over in other continents, but right here in the United States of America, girls as young as 8 years old and sometimes even younger, getting snatched away from their parents and going on to a life where the life expectancy, if you stay in that life, will be about 8 years. And if you could just imagine for a moment that a young girl, 8, 10, 12 years old, servicing 8 or 9 guys night after night after night after night after night, and just end up losing hope because, again, only about 5% ever get rescued. I think about just the United States of America and the challenges that we have in terms of human trafficking. They say in about 5 years, it'll be the top criminal activity. uh, right now, it's just third to drugs and guns. But the thing about human trafficking, which makes it unique in terms of criminal activity, the the person, okay, or the thing that's being traded can be used over and over and over again. A drug can be used once. Guns can be used several times until they wear out. But human trafficking, this constant violation, if you will, of our most precious beings. And so it's happening in every neighborhood, everywhere you go. I'm in Washington, D.C., your nation's capital here. And just about, I say about 6 months ago, there's a young girl who got snatched away in a van that was put on all the radars and all the news feeds in that place. We never thought that this would happen. But again, it's happening in every neighborhood and as young as 8 years old. Human trafficking is where people are taken against their own will to do sexual acts, if you will, and sometimes could be work acts as well without their consent. So anyone who's under 18 who's in this lifestyle of giving themselves away or being their innocence is being taken away, if you will, that's different than prostitution. It's actually human trafficking because it's totally against their will.
So how did you get into this? What was it there? What's the genesis of you creating this organization and diving into this?
Yes, so about 16 years ago, I was actually a youth minister, youth pastor, but would go around and speak, and it was actually specifically more towards parents, helping them understand some of the potential dangers in the media and what they should look out for as it pertains to making good choices for their family. And in doing our research, we just found out everywhere, women being violated, women being dishonored, being disrespected in media and music, everywhere you look, they were just being disenfranchised. And we began to do some research about this whole idea of violation against women and found out how big it was and how big of an issue it was. My heart was just sensitized because I found out there were people in my own family, in my friends group, who had been violated in so many different ways. They say, in terms of women being violated, it happens about 75% of women have experienced some type of violation in their life. And that's just anything. Again, it could be sexual assault, could be rape, could be anything like that. And for me, I was like, if there's anything that I could do to make life better for my daughters, for my granddaughters, it would be to give them the gift of a world that's a little bit better, a little bit more kinder, a little bit more friendlier, a world where they can move out without fear of violence. I live in a pretty decent area here in Washington, D.C., and I don't think about going out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Don't even think twice about it. But in the middle of the day, my wife has to have different considerations, even in the middle of the day, because of things that could potentially happen to her. And so, what we like to do is we know that if we can get men engaged to think about every girl, every woman as someone that's related to him, and treat them in that same way with the same dignity and the same respect, we could change the landscape in terms of how women are being treated around the globe. And so we've been able to get men to open up their mouths and to be a voice not only in their own homes but also in their communities as well.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I hear you talking about that, and I like the idea of. I think you kind of seems like your method is to personalize these women to these men. So these women that are out there, if that's your daughter, if that was your mama, how would you want her to be treated, and what would you do to safeguard her and to protect her from the ills of the world? When I hear that, the only thing that I think is I want to be in a world where I don't have to be related to that girl to
Yeah,
want her be protected. I
exactly.
want the idea of any woman walking around to feel safe, whether or not she knows me. So, and
Absolutely.
when I think that, that's what I think. All women should be walking around and should just feel safe just because of who they are.
Absolutely.
And and I think for us men, we need to work on that. And when I hear consider that I think there's a process. One, we have to work on taking care of the women in our community. So the ones
Yeah.
that we know first.
Right.
So our sisters, mothers, aunts, cousins, and then work our way out. So the people I know, the women that she knows and that she knows, and then work and then just make this big circle, this big cone of protection that all women can just feel comfortable. So I love what you do. Um,
And I want to mention just one thing in terms of what you were saying, Harvey,
mhm,
in terms of just to honor women just because of who they are, not necessarily because they're related. And that's the place we want to get to. One of the challenges with men is that oftentimes sexual assault is not on the front of our mind. The only time we think about that, if there was some possibility we would end up in jail. And our
mm,
first thoughts are,
mm.
you know,
Yeah,
if I end
yeah.
up in jail,
What's
and
gonna
I
happen
might
to
have
me?
to struggle,
Mhm,
but it's going to be that time when somebody going to ask me to pick up the proverbial
mm.
soap, if you will. And that's
Right,
when we think about sexual assault. But we
right,
don't think about it any other time because it doesn't happen that frequently to us. And so
right.
what I find for men is we have to make that connection with what's familiar and to give a men an object, if you will, first of all, and then make that connection with them being honoring to women just because of who they are. I remember when I was growing up, I enjoyed playing basketball. That was my sport. And but my father, he wanted me and my brothers to run track. He just thought that was a beneficial thing for us to do, to be fast, and that would help us out in every area of life. But for me, I had to hold on to something for me to I can't just run and there's nothing in my hand, not that I'm going after something, if you will. So I had to have that football or that basketball, if you will, in my hand. And that made it meaningful to me, that exercise, if you will. And so the idea of thinking about them as our daughter or a mother or our niece or our aunt, that's sort of step one. And if we can create that right then I think we can change the generation. I'm excited about looking or studying revolutions where people said no more, right? They just said no more. And I think we can get there. We can read all throughout history where people in different situations said no more, change happened. And that's what we want.
And we'll get there. We'll
Yeah,
definitely get there. This is a revolution. This is something that we need to do. We need to protect our women. We need to protect all women, but it's obviously our women. All right. So if you've been a listener or watcher of this podcast, typically I bring a man on and then I go through the letters for prize
yeah.
and we talk about that person. We're going to tweak it a little bit. If you haven't listened or watched and this is your first time, welcome. This is a space for men to talk about anything. This is not the typical episode. We're talking about not the man per se, but what he does and what he's doing. And I think it's going to be fantastic. I take four of the letters in the word prize. Each
Mhm.
of those words typically represent good characteristics for a man. I think in this case, for what you do, for men in general, in terms of how we're going to take care of our women, I think that's how I'm going to run these questions. We're going to tweak it a little bit. So when we talk about this, it's not going to be about you, but it's going to be about what you're doing and how we're helping our women. So the first letter in the word prize is P. The word is purpose. Reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So, different way of asking this question. What is the purpose of men when it comes to our women? How would you answer that question?
I think there's several things that the purpose of man is one is being a leader, and that doesn't necessarily mean sort of in a domineering fashion and you do what I tell you to do, that sort of thing, but setting a good example wherever you are, for yourself, in your home, if you're in school, setting a good example there, being the best that you can be in all situations. And I think that is good leadership. And I think women respond to that, if you will, in terms of being good leaders. Um, in terms of men and women and my relationship with my daughter, I want to model someone who I would want her to marry and have those same characteristics, right? And so that causes me to think a lot in terms of how I move, how I relate to my wife, how I relate to other people. When she sees that, I want her to see a strong man and to be gravitated towards a strong man. So I think it's about, being a good leader, being a strong leader, being the one who goes out first, if you will, steps out on faith, follows their calling in life. Um, Experiences fear, but moves throughout fear, or moves through that fear, moving through those walls that might hold him down, and just showing the best example in all areas of life.
Agreed. Agreed. Well said. As a proud girl dad, it's I and obviously you know the same, how we carry ourselves day to day, every minute, every step we take, how we as men respond with our women, with our girls, with not even just ours, but the women that see us when we walk out into the street and whatever, is incredibly important. And I love what you said. I just want to kind of jump on that. Give me or one or two in things that we may not even feel like are significant, just day-to-day things that we men can do that show how supportive, how loving we are. What can we do? Just regular day-to-day stuff to show our women that we are supportive of them.
Greatest thing we can do, Harvey, the greatest thing we can do is to use both of these and lessen this right here, right? So, oftentimes we want to be fixers, right?
Right.
And and we know that as men, as those who have spouses or those who even have children, some people just want to be heard. People just want to be heard, and that's why I'll detour just for a hot second, just in terms of why I'm so appreciative of what you do. Men just want to be heard, right? So we're just sometimes we just appreciate for the things that we do, and we go and plug away and do them day after day after day, run ourselves down, don't take care of ourselves, don't see ourselves as a prize. We don't see it. Society would tell us that as well. But people just want to be heard. You can change almost any relationship by just listening more, by listening more. And oftentimes we find in relationships, they don't want a solution. They just
Right.
want that listening ear. And listening ears can change the landscape of someone's life completely. You can think about the time when you had something going on and someone just sat there and listened to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was just so powerful. They might not have needed any other type of medicine, any other type of therapy, even though that's good, don't get me wrong, but just that listening ear. So number one, be a listening ear to the people around you, to the women around you. Number one, I would say the other thing is to be engaged with what they love, to be engaged. Now, you might not like it from the beginning, but find a way to like it and find a way to show it. I had a good brother. He was just getting married about 2 years ago, and we were talking, and he said, "You know what? My wife loves to go pick apples," and he was like, "I have no idea in my mind why someone would want to go out there on a beautiful day and be in an apple orchard to pick apples." I said, "Listen, man." I said, "You want to have a good relationship." I said, "Not only do you go with her to pick apples, but you plan the trip."
Mm.
And that shows her
Mm.
that you're interested in the things that she does. Okay. And when you go out there, don't have a sullen face. Don't be, sad about it. Be engaged, be energized. You have no idea how that will help you. And I'll never forget, he did his first orchard picking trip. And it was unbelievable how his wife responded to him on a continual basis. So I would say that's the second thing. Be really engaged. For us dad daughters, for us or fathers who have daughters, find out what their interests are,
Yep.
engage them on their interests, and be enthusiastic about it. Find out common interests that you might have. Me and my daughter, we love fashion. That's one of our things, and so we take an annual, sometimes twice a year trip to New York City, and enjoy that, and just a great time that I have with her because we have that mutual interest. But those are two things that I would say: listening and find and engage in mutual interests.
That's such great advice. It's something, obviously it fits when it's our daughters or the wonderful women we have in our lives. It's something that's evergreen. Everybody needs that. But it's so important because I feel like we're kind of in this society where women aren't even being treated perfectly. They're not how they're perceived in media, whether it's movies or TV or magazines. There's so much that they're dealing with. When you have daughters, it's important. These magazines, this social media, telling what size they should be, what they look at, what songs to listen to, all that stuff. We fathers are incredibly important in the lives of our daughters. That I know it because I've kind of looked into these things. Like we build up fathers in the lives of daughters. These girls know that they're loved. They're confident. They're willing to go out and do things and try things out and maybe fail because they know they got somebody behind them. When
Yeah.
you have a daughter who's got that man behind them, because we parent differently. You got mom who's going to do one thing, but I'm a little bit, I'm different with it. I love you. I give you that hug. Go get it. And
Yeah.
it's different when we bring a different type of energy to it. And what's really good, what you said, is they're going to look for somebody when the time comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Absolutely.
is it. This is it. This is the kind of guy. I have a question.
Absolutely.
We spend a lot of time telling our girls, this is what you should expect with a partner. He should do this. He should do that. This is what I do. You should expect that. Have you ever taken the time and told your daughter how to treat a man?
That is an excellent question right there. And I've never contemplated that. But I would say, as I think about it now, there are issues that she might have had with a suitor. And in those issues, of course, we'll deal with the challenge, whatever the suitor did or said that was, off or to the left, if you will.
Right.
And there have been times when I've asked her questions, what was her part uh, um, in the challenge there,
Right.
because I think it's so important for us to, in an appropriate ways, be engaged in those relationships, right, and help them navigate through it. Because I think uh, the mom can come up with certain types of answers as it pertains to relationship, but very
Right.
often the dad will come from a different perspective and
Right.
can speak different into her life as it pertains to relationships. And many times, Harvey, we'll acquiesce from that. We just,
Yeah.
nah,
Yeah.
let mom deal with it or whatever,
Right.
forgetting that our voice is powerful in our lives. And very often, they are listening even when they don't act like it.
Hmm.
And
Ooh.
that is a huge thing right there. And I want to
Hmm.
tell all brothers who are listening and under the sound of our voices, your daughter is listening to you, even
So true.
when she's responding otherwise. Now, it might not come to play where she tells you that she listened to you. We've all had the joy, at least most of us, when we had teenage daughters, they might have come and said, Dad, you know what? When you said XYZ, X number of years ago or months ago, that really was powerful to me. So we've got to be careful what we say in terms of our daughter, but also make sure that we are saying things and that we are speaking into their lives.
So true. So true. One thing we know about children is that they really soak up their environment and the actions of the
Oh, yeah.
people around them, the important people around them. One thing that I've done my best with my wife, and we're 15 years in,
Okay.
and we are adults and we will have disagreements. We will have conflict. One thing I've really tried to do is to learn how to have a disagreement. There's a way to disagree with my spouse.
Sure.
There's a way to argue, especially when I have three girls there. Me and the wife, we can disagree with something, we can get heated, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah. Oh,
No
yeah.
hands are thrown, none of
Mm-mm.
that activity. We fight like adults. And I think
Yeah.
it's important that my daughter and my 19-year-old son can see that conflict is normal.
Right.
It's going to happen, and there's a way to handle it.
Yeah.
I could be upset with my wife, she could be mad at me, but we still respect each other when we speak. They don't
Amen
have
to
to worry about something going down.
right.
We disagree. And that's so important to see. My parents are disagreeing, but look at how they handle it. They know how to disagree. And we don't
Yeah.
spend enough time on that. That's the thing. Look, I mean, I have a 19-year-old son, and he's gonna be dating girls and whatever. And you're gonna disagree with people, but your voice stays, you stay calm, you
Yes.
stay respectful for that
Yeah.
woman. And when
Yes.
my daughters see that, they know that they can be with some guy in the future and disagree and argue and know that nothing's going to happen. They're not
Yeah.
going to the ER afterwards. They just maybe go to their separate rooms to deal with it. That's
Yeah.
part of having a relationship. It's such a big deal. And obviously, I'm saying this because we're talking about women, we're talking about our
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
Conflict happens,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
need to be able to deal with it properly. So that's a thing. Is that something that something that you've considered? You've been married for 30 years and such. Is that something that's been cognizant with you in terms of raising your child?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I put at the top of the list in terms of relationships, dignity. And we as men, like I was saying earlier, I believe we're leaders. I just believe that that's within a man to lead, in a respectful way. And as leaders, we're teachers, and one of the greatest things we can teach is how to still maintain dignity for someone, even though we disagree with them. And it could be a major disagreement. It's not just about which side do you put the toilet paper on, but something really serious.
Right.
And we have to be the ones to model, because in those situations, we're actually teaching how to dignify people.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
one of the best ways to do it is when conflict happens, I still see you as a human being. I still see you as my wife. I still see you as the children's mother. You deserve dignity at all times. And if for some reason it gets too heated, we can agree to disagree. And we might have to go to separate rooms for a moment. But
Right.
it's so powerful for children to see that played out, because conflict's gonna happen in their lives. We know that, right?
Right.
But
Yes,
they
sir.
can see that model, that dad and mom know how to do it, and do it in a way that still leaves each other intact, their dignities intact.
Mm. So important. It's becoming a father was such an interesting time for me because there's no book, there's no workbook, there's no manual. You see your baby and like, all right, it's time to do it. And especially with girls. I'll tell you one thing for me, and I don't know if this, and see if you can kind of speak to this. So I've got three girls and a son. And when it comes to girls, there's this kind of ease with intimacy, meaning she can come over and just hug me, any one of them, sit on my lap, and we could hug, and we can do whatever. That seems natural.
Yes.
But when you have a son, I have a 19-year-old son who's bigger than me, who loves hugs more than his sisters do.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing when you're a parent, when you have a son who's that, it's weird. Like, should I hug him? It feels strange because I didn't grow up with that. And a lot of us don't. A lot of
Yeah.
us men didn't grow up with that either. So this
Yeah.
idea of just hugging this man type of thing, it's weird. It's simple with my daughters. But when
Yeah.
it's my son, and it's this constant work with me, hug him, stay in there, and just be in the moment. It's hard to describe, because being a parent, I want to take care of all my kids. I want to give them the world. I want to give them all this love and this emotional space that I can, but it's a little bit different when
Yeah.
it's your girls versus your son. How is that relationship with you and your daughter? Are you guys tight like that? Is that like she could pull up and hug you and then that's the day type of thing?
Absolutely. I have one son as well, and he's about 6 years older than her. And probably the same thing that you're describing in terms of relationship, your son and your daughters are the same thing I have. Us who are of the age of 40 or 50 or above, a lot of times we have similar stories in that our fathers weren't the touchy feely type at all. They
Right,
showed their love in whatever ways, and I was grateful to have my, still have my father and mother together
right.
after 60, close to 60 years now. But that's an interesting dynamic. We're learning how to be that, and I've sort of learned over time how to be that with my son. But I tell everybody this: the daughter relationship is one that you do not have to work at. Your marriage relationship, you have to work at that, right?
Right, right,
There's something about the father-daughter relationship that does not have to work at. I mean, you don't have to work at it in
right.
terms of it just is natural. It feels natural. There's this natural level of protection, sometimes overprotection.
Hmm.
I tell people about my son. It was like we have a great relationship, but I'm like, I'm not as worried about him because he can go out there and take care of things. He's a
Right,
man and he could take care of things. My daughter, I don't care. She could be 75 and I'm still when she leaves my house, I'm gonna go watch her out, out the
right,
window, make sure she gets to
right.
her car. And she's 30 now. When I do it now, she's like, "Dad, but we don't have to work at that at all, man. And it's a beautiful thing, and I celebrate it, man.
Mm,
And I want to, transition or when generations go, or as generations go on, I want my son to have the same relationship that I had with his son as
mhm.
opposed to the one for whatever reason, with my father. Again, it's not antagonistic.
Right,
We have a good relationship, but it wasn't that, bro
right.
hug type situation that I might have with my mom. So that it's just so beautiful, that relationship. And that's why we use that with the understanding of how we can really at least dignify all other women.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
It's an important relationship that that, and while you say it's not something that you don't intrinsically you don't have to work at it. Like I saw my daughter born, and I'm like, that's my daughter, and that's just what it is, right?
Yeah,
Just
man.
hug, and it's just there's something about your little girl coming over, and I really I'm gonna divert entirely because I love asking this question, and we're kind of in this fatherhood thing. I ask men this question because to me it says a lot about what we think about ourselves. If I was able to speak to your daughter right now, what would she say about her daddy? How would she
Wow.
describe you?
Well, I'll use this phrase. She gave me a nickname. It's BDTIW. And every time she texts me, it's BDTIW, best daddy in the world. And
Wow.
yeah. And
Wow.
whenever I text her, and this is whenever, I always started with MBG, most beautiful girl. And so we have that relationship, and she would honor me at the highest level. And I am always confident of that. She would always say that I, try to lead a best example, try to lead her in the right way. There are times where she might not agree with me, but she knows that she's the apple of my eye, and she um, always is there for me. I'm always there for her, and that's the things that she would say. And I tell you what, I know there are some situations where men cannot be with their daughters for various reasons. And I'll just say for various reasons. I don't castigate, or hold judgment. But when I think about my daughter, it makes it hard for me to think of how any man could be estranged from his daughter without casting any judgment at all.
Right,
I
right.
just, I just could not imagine an existence without her. God's precious gift. And I'm like you, Harvey. Man, when I saw her in that delivery room, man, I can't I,
Mm,
I can't even explain it. I can't even explain it, man. There's not even words, man. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Instant
yeah.
connection right there. I still have her baby picture. I still remember when she came, and
Mhm.
life has forever been different. Forever been.
Oh, very much so. Very much
Yeah,
so. I remember that there too. I remember I was in that room. She was born. I was the first person to see her come. Like,
yeah,
let's
man.
see my child. It's a surreal moment. I
It
think it's
is.
the best way to
Yeah,
describe it.
yeah.
Yeah, I Yeah, I know when I talk about fatherhood, I mean, I'm a talker, I have a lot, but at times I'm just like spellbound where I don't have a word. I've got
Yeah.
3 of them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that one's amazing. That one's amazing. That one's amazing. And I'm just like, they're mine and I love it.
Yeah.
But let's pivot a bit. The next letter in the word prizes are the word is resilient.
Yes.
The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. So we're talking about how we're treating our girls. Let's go back to the birth. Let's go back to, you know what? I'm not even going to pick. Let's go back to anything. Can you think of a particular situation as a girl that something that happened? Maybe a situation that you weren't prepared for, or maybe you were. Something that happened where you discovered that you had resilience that you didn't know you had as a father.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, um, several things. Number one, she was in the hospital a lot as a teenager.
Mm.
And to the extent that at Children's Hospital in DC, they almost knew us by a first name basis. And she had an issue where she was probably had 7 to 8 surgeries in a short amount of time. And she was an example to me of resilience in terms of going through that, but popping back every single time with joy, with enthusiasm, with her love for life. And so that really inspired me, even to the extent of last year, about 18 months ago, I had open heart surgery. And, what was one of the hardest things to see my kids have to see me going under the knife. That was hard, brother. That was hard.
I,
I, I,
I,
I was more concerned about their well-being than mine at all.
mhm. I believe it.
And, but just to have seen her going through what she went through, and also knowing that if or as I come through this with strength and power, that they'll be able to see that. She'll be able to see that whatever trial she's going through or will go through, it won't take her out. It won't take her down. So I was so grateful for me to be a part of her process, but also her to be a part of my process. And one thing I want to say about the resilience in terms of the work we do, we have an initiative where we call the Reconnect. And that is helping fathers get reconnected back with their daughters. Men who are out in the freedom, if you will, but also especially men who are incarcerated. Because one of the challenges is we think about resilience. Very often, if a man is estranged from his daughter for whatever reason, shame gets in the way,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Guilt gets in the way.
yeah.
And there's a point, Harvey, where it's more easy for them to say, listen, don't be around me at this time. Or incarcerated brothers say, I don't want her to see me in this condition right here. But I just want to say and speak a word into all brothers who might be estranged for whatever reason. Please, you have this opportunity to show resilience. You have this opportunity to show love to your daughter, even though you cannot speak to her or be with her. And this is what I would say. If you are estranged, do everything you can. Write letters, send emails, do whatever you have to do, because there will be one day, it's going to be one day where your daughter will say to you, hey, Dad, why didn't you ever? Why didn't you ever? And at least, I don't care if the letters are being returned to you. Okay. If some situation is going on, at least you have those receipts to say, listen, baby, Daddy reached out. Daddy never gave up. Daddy was resilient in the midst of the hardship he was going through because he loved you so much. There will be that day. So do whatever you have to do to be resilient in a hard situation, to reach out and stay connected, because I don't care what anybody says. They need you.
Oh, so true.
They want you.
Mhm,
And like I said, you could be in a situation, you could be in jail. They still want the daddy.
mhm. So true. You're talking about your daughter in the hospital, and I'm thinking about my youngest daughter. She's 9 now,
Yeah.
and she was born on December 23rd. The next day, she had to be taken to a NICU at a different hospital. And she spent 7 days, and she came home and she was fine. Just thinking about this, there is nothing more powerful, than being a father, being a man in your child's life. and nothing that makes you feel so powerless when they're in a hospital and there is absolutely nothing you can do. You are sitting there and it's up to these other people to save your baby's life. And I think of the dichotomy of it. It's like, I want to be this bastion, this manly man in front of my girl. And then there's other times where she's tougher than me in these situations.
Yeah,
It's
man.
such a thing. It's when you were talking about that, I'm like, we went to the NICU every day and held her, and it was weird. And I'm like, I should be, I'm supposed to do something. I'm the man, I'm her father. This should be taken care of by now. And to not be able to do anything. And it's a bit of a stretch, but I can imagine as a parent where unfortunately maybe you lose your child because of some sex trafficking or human trafficking type of thing. And somebody just took your child. And I'm a man here and I'm supposed to, and you're gonna find a way to blame yourself. I
Yeah.
should have been there, I should have held a hand, whatever. Being that level of powerlessness, that feeling that there's nothing you can do when I am bred to do something in every situation, has to be heartbreaking. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that. I cannot imagine what that feels like. But you are so correct. When it comes to our babies, we have to be consistent. I'm bugging you. Yes, you don't see me, but you hear me. You mad when you hear me, but you're gonna hear me again tomorrow. You're gonna
Oh,
hear me
yeah.
the day after that.
Yeah.
That's the true level of a father. I am bothering you. I'm not a part of your life. I'm in your life. There's
Yes.
a difference. There's a
Yes.
difference in being that. And I don't know. It's just me rambling. Whenever I talk about my kids, I can just
Yeah.
go. But I don't know. That's the resilience thing is right. That's
Yeah.
true. Our kids go through so much, especially our girls.
Yeah,
And
man.
being that brick wall that they can lean on, it's an important thing to do. It's an important place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and I don't know. I wonder, is that something? Did you discover, you know what? That's what I'm going to be for my daughter. I'm going to be that guy. Is that something that you just knew, or is it something that you found yourself being as you were raising her?
I think it just found me. I don't think, it's nothing I worked at or made a decision about. I just think God just puts that in us, that connection right there. That I'm not and sometimes we can take it a little bit too far, right? We can get a little bit over anxious about it. I remember she had a boyfriend,
Mm,
and he said something cross to her one time, and I had to check him.
mm.
And that was, I said, listen, man, I want you to understand something. I am so much on her side that even if she did something wrong and I knew it,
I'd still talk to you. You'd still hear
well,
from me, brother. You did. It
you know
was
what I'm
your
saying?
reason. You're the reason she did what she did. I'm still.
I said,
It's still your fault.
yeah. I said, I said I would have a lack of control. I just want to warn you now
Mhm.
that I would have a, but Harvey, it's one of those things that doesn't work. It's just like I said, that magical feeling, that magical responsibility when we saw her come out the womb, that just overtook
Mm.
everything, man. It's not like,
Mhm.
I didn't have to think about anything. It was just like an animalistic connection that I had with her.
Mhm.
That will never leave. That will never leave. And I'm grateful for it, man. There's nothing like, I love my son. I love our relationship. And there's something powerful about the relationship between the dad and the daughter. And I want to say this as well: the connection with this father-daughter thing with
Mhm.
human trafficking is this: that they have done studies, National Human Trafficking Board, that the more a father is connected with his own daughter, the less likely she is to fall prey to predators, often online. The predators are coming and saying this: listen, hey, I know your parents they don't allow you to get your nails, but why don't you meet me down at such and such mall? And I'll do that. And what they're saying is that the voice of a father, specifically a father, in his daughter's life, give her the confidence to say, nah, that's not it. That's not where we're going. And
Mhm.
so predators prey on daughters who don't have a connection with their dad.
Mhm.
And so that's just a powerful thing. We can stop human trafficking in our own households, in our neighborhoods, just by being connected. It's almost like if someone was going to rob somebody's house, if you're the one that has the Doberman pinching, least they're not going to come to your house, you know, they're going
Right.
to their
Yeah.
neighbor's house.
Yep.
There's something about the presence of a dad in here that can change not only his household, but also the presence of fathers in neighborhoods can change the landscape of a neighborhood. We could stop this thing just by men becoming involved.
So true. So true. Our presence is very much our weapon in this. You're
Oh
not
yeah.
going to mess with my child. You're not going to mess with her best friend. You're not going to
No.
mess with her best friend's mom or aunt or her teacher or the principal. We need to be a fearsome force so that you're not coming here. You're not messing
Exactly.
with ours. And the more we do that, the more we're present, the less chances. And I'm not, that's, we can't avoid it entirely because there's just some terrible stuff that people will do.
Right.
But we have
Sure.
a better chance of avoiding that if we're here, if we are consistently there. I take pride in that as a father, that these kids, they know they can't get that far away from me. I'm
Right.
gonna
Right.
find
Oh
you.
yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
around. And I'm proud of that. That's not a bad thing.
Exactly.
It's a
No
good thing.
apologies.
No,
No
Papa,
apologies.
I'm Papa. Deal with that. You can be mad, but you can be mad at home where I know you are, and I'll take that
Exactly.
any day. Be
Exactly.
mad here. Be upset here. Don't listen to voices that are not mine. I get to the point where people are going to talk to you, and I try my best. Is that something Dad would say? Would Dad
Right.
approve of something like this? And if you have a question, then step away from that and know that you're protected. We are their voices. I kind of like the idea of just we're in their heads and there's this
Yeah.
gentle voice. And you know what? I don't know if I should do this. And kids don't always listen. They're kids, and that's fine.
Right. Right.
But in important moments, and I say this to my son when I send him out into the world, if there's any situation going on, especially with women, because, and we can even talk about this in terms of the word consent, it's such an important word. Two, have a 19-year-old son,
Yeah.
and you're going to be in relationships, in situations, and it's important to listen to that other person. But if you're in a
Yeah.
situation with a young lady that you're interested in, is that something? Would Dad treat Mom this way? Would
Exactly.
would I
Exactly.
do that with me? Would I do this with your mom? And if you have to question it, peace.
Done. That's it.
For
That's it.
men, that's it. For men, that's it. Consent, listen to her. And we're
Yeah.
men, we want to be active. We want to do all these things, but there's nothing better than somebody who is a willing participant. So it's
Yeah.
important that we make sure that I bury that into him. You are with somebody. The word is yes. You hear no, back it up. And that's a huge thing that we can do in terms of protecting our women. For us to recognize that they are not something we own. They are
Exactly.
somebody
Exactly.
to be with, someone to love, someone to cherish. And if we can do that with our boys, then we're much better off, because when I value that girl, then I'm going to protect her.
Absolutely. You're going to protect her. You know, and it's such a powerful thing you're saying right here, Harvey, because one of the things we do is consent workshops.
That's
And
good.
every consent workshop that I've done one at high schools and men's groups as well, is I take a vase, okay, or some piece of glass, and I have all the participants take a sticky pad and write the name of a woman on it. And I go around the room having put the sticky pad on the glass, the vase, if you will, and I put that into a pillowcase, and I'll slam the pillowcase on the ground, and then I take it out and just put all the shards on the floor or on the table. And that gets their attention every time, because my point is that when we violate someone, when we don't act in a way of consenting, then we get someone who ends up being broken. And that person is going to have those shards of glass throughout their whole life. They can get therapy, but there are going to be these remnants there. And what ends up happening, that person becomes sort of a broken individual, not a bad individual, not damaged, but they become a broken individual. And a lot of times, those shards of glass, we feel those in the workplace or at school, someone who's acting in anger, not knowing that at some point, violation caused their brokenness right there. So a big part of what we do is also to encourage men. Listen, there are women at your schools, there are women in your workplace, up to 75% who have had this damaging situation done to them. And they have those shards of glass that might cut you by the way they say something. But it causes us to want to step back for a moment and say, hold on, maybe she's not that angry woman that I'm thinking, or maybe she is, but maybe there's actually good reason because they've been violated. And so that's a sensitivity that we need to have, a sensitivity that we teach our sons and we teach men as well, so they understand that if that lady has been broken in that way, that's going to affect every part of her life, generations down to come, because it was hard for her to get through that particular situation.
Having empathy for our women is an incredibly important thing to do, and we build that in our sons. We engender that with how we speak and how we talk and how we treat the women around us. It's not a thing I have to actually go into. You have to be empathetic and do whatever. You learn it, you see it, but how I treat mom. And it's little things. Like for me, it's I open the door and since I'm in a house with a bunch of women, it's I open that door and mom goes and then the girls go and then my son goes and then I
Yeah.
go. And
Yeah.
it's little things like that. And I still have to every once in a while remind him. But it's respect. It's it to me at times it feels simple,
Sure.
but it's profound.
Yeah.
And
Oh
it's
yeah.
a big thing that we have to do. I'm going to move on from we were talking about resilience. Let's move to zeal, and that is enthusiastic devotion.
Yeah.
And I feel like for you, I ask men this: what do you do? What do you have something that you do for you that you love? Because the world can be hard, and we need to just deal with the stress. But I feel like for you, this what you do with She's My Daughter is your zeal. It's something that you love. It's something
Yeah.
that
Oh
you
yeah.
do for obviously for your girls and for the girls that they know and the girls that they know. Talk about how meaningful this organization is to you personally.
It's so meaningful because I've been in touch with so many women who've experienced violation on every level. And just the fact that a man is out there championing who they are, speaking positivity into their lives, giving them hope and encouragement and practical applications of kindness. We work a lot with giving resources out to shelters and safe houses, and that sort of thing. Just to have men doing that is such a powerful thing because oftentimes they've just seen men who've been breakers, destroyers. Society has made us look like that. Very and all too often, especially black men, look like ones who have destroyed. But there's so many of us out there who are restorers, and there's so many of us out there are hope givers. A lot of times we just don't get the voice or the platform. And so the idea of being able to do that gives me joy, gives me passion because I get to give or speak words of hope and positivity in someone else's life, change their life. Sometimes it's just by my presence or by words or by things that we're actually doing or, following up, seeing how their life is in X number of months or years. To have people know that someone else is concerned is just a powerful thing. So for me, it's just a passion. It's a passion what I do. We have opportunity a couple times a year to go into the women's shelter in DC here, and they have about 175 women who are there, and we bring toiletries and all kinds of things. And when we go in there, I can't even tell you how dark it is in there. They can have all the lights on, and it's the darkest place I've ever seen. Whoever runs the shelters, they keep it up in a decent way, but you could just see the women just complete lack of hope. Hope is completely gone, and it's the visually, aesthetically, it is so drab in there that I don't see how anybody can have hope. It sits literally 200 feet from the DC jail, DC men's jail. And
Mm,
I bet you the DC men's jail is more colorful and aesthetically pleasing than that what that shelter is. And I don't know why it is that way, but it is.
mm,
But whenever they see us coming in there to just provide them with gifts of kindness, the light goes on. And just to see their faces, man, that someone is concerned about them in a real way. Someone wants to have, or someone wants them to have a better, more meaningful life. It's just a powerful thing to see, and that just gives me joy, man. And so that keeps my zeal going, in terms of the work that I do. She's my daughter.
mm.
Yeah,
That's amazing. It's also sad to think about that, because what happens to these women, obviously physically they can be destroyed, but it just rips at their heart emotionally in this. So you get, I'm sure you can see that they feel defeated and such. So it's so to I'm sure, so when you go in there, there's got to be this a little bit like, oh my God, I could see a little bit of energy coming, because there's a
yeah,
man, because somebody's here to help you. And the fact that you're a man doing it, because chances are the man was who mistreated them, to be
yeah,
that other side of the coin, that's just a good man here to help you out.
yeah.
It's tough to consider, but it's something we have to do.
We
It's
have to
we
do it.
need to, we men need to sit here and realize how many women are just sitting there running for their lives
Yeah,
in these marriages where they're being attacked, and just they can't even walk the streets. And it's something I don't want to hold on to, but for
right.
me to make sure I help women and
Yeah,
respect them, I
yeah,
need to remember,
yeah,
because in the end I can just take it out of my mind. A
yeah.
lot of these women can't. This is life for them. If for
That's
me it could just be some fleeting thought.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. And
so
I use the term all the time, PTSD. And oftentimes we make that connection between, for military officers or those in the military, and very often that is quite the case. They've gone through some traumatic things, and there's women who have gone through trauma, have PTSD. This is something they live with throughout life. They can't forget about it. Many times it manifests in how they are in relationships, or the next relationship they might have, how they treat that particular man, unloading on him everything that they've gone through, or even how they parent their children.
mhm,
Many times there's a level of protectiveness that we have naturally as parents, but sometimes they can be overly protective. We've seen that just because they have a fear of what they've gone through, someone else doing the same to their children as well. So they're broken in so many different ways. And for us, there's no more joy when we go into these places, man, and just to share, just a few words of kindness, that when we get the opportunity, and share with them gifts that they can use on a daily basis. Because very often when women get in those places, their whole family has given up on them,
mm,
because very often they're mothers, right? And we think in terms of custodial relationships, mothers being more involved than fathers in a general sense. People think
right.
that. So when a mother doesn't have her child, it's the worst type of shame in the whole world.
Mhm.
So I would imagine out of the 175 ladies there, 160 of them are mothers who are away from their children. So just on top of
Mm, mm,
everything they've gone through, and then not to have the love of their children, just to see somebody there, and specifically, like you say, to see a man there is just a powerful thing. That just gives me joy, man. And I just encourage every man, to, it can be a very easy thing in men's groups just to gather up supplies or anything, toiletries, and you can get lists on the internet, just to go and deliver those to places where women are. For them to see men acting that way is a powerful thing.
mhm. I like that idea. I like that idea. I think that's something to do. The last letter in the word prize is E, and the word is expectation.
Yeah.
Is there a goal in a year? Is there something that She's My Daughter, something that this organization is going to be doing that's gonna help? What do you see in the future in this organization?
Absolutely. Well, two things that I would mention. Number one, our book is coming out as my first book. It's in the final stages of editing, and it's
Okay.
called Your Voice, Her Future, about the relationship between a father and a daughter. with a lot of anecdotes in there, a lot of stories in there, but also some practical things that you can do as a dad to connect or reconnect with your daughter, knowing that your voice today will not inspire her only today, but also in her future as well. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we're opening up our space called Free. And Free is a space for girls ages 8 through 18 to enliven and embolden their self-esteem. So we'll actually be having self-enrichment classes there. We'll be having classes in entrepreneurship, classes in public speaking, which we know is a powerful thing. And also we're building a recording studio there for spoken word artists and also musical artists. So a lot of the music here, which tears them down, we want to come counterculture and put some positive music out there for the girls. So it's called Free. You can check it out on our website there. But we've had all the interior of the space that was donated to us been refurbished there, and we're getting our final supplies to have that fully online in April. And how that connects with human trafficking is this: again, the most powerful thing that you can do for a girl is build up her self-esteem, or let me say, enliven the self-esteem she already has, and that'll make her less likely to fall prey to predators off and online.
Fantastic. Thanks for answering the questions in regards to the P.R.I.Z.E mantra. I have one more question, and just dipping back into the fatherhood thing, because I that's kind of one of my favorite subjects. I know I've learned so much parenting these kids. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot about them, about kids in general, about me. But I also know as a parent that we teach. Which do you prefer, the learning or the teaching as a father?
Yes. Wow, that's a great question, man. Um, I enjoy both. I would say this: I'm surprised by what I learned. I am completely surprised by what I learned. And sometimes I'll just have to sit back and think about, wow, my kid taught me that. My kid, my children taught me resilience. My children taught me unconditional love,
Mm.
right? My children taught me things about how to have resilience, how to bounce back. Uh, my children taught me that even when I made mistakes, their love didn't fail. So I think Harvey, continually surprised by learning and learning from them. And it just brings me joy as I think about that now. And it doesn't come in planned ways and systematic ways. It's just sort of random. It's almost like, when you go to McDonald's, and you get that one extra French fry that's at the bottom of the bag that you didn't expect was there. You thought you ate them all, man. You got that one left. And so it's like that. It's just sweet surprises like that, man. So I probably appreciate more the learning, man. It just gives me great joy.
I like that. I like that. This has been a wonderful conversation. And the one last thing I got from this is and if you're watching this, you're seeing two men who were beaming when we were talking about our daughters and seeing them come into the world. If there's one thing I got from this conversation, if we can keep that feeling all the time,
Yeah.
that kind of love, then we will take care of these girls and make sure that we minimize all the bad stuff that can happen to them. Remember that if you're a father and you're a girl dad, that moment when she came into the world, or the first time she hugged you, or the first time you guys did something together, keep that. And if you can take that feeling and transfer it to a woman you don't even know,
Yeah.
to anybody else, that feeling, nothing will happen to our girls.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to do. I love this conversation. Where can people find you, this organization? We want to hear it all. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So you can find us at www.she's with a S, she's my daughter.com. And from there, you can go and find all of our social media links. We're on Instagram and also on Facebook as well. And we are endeavoring to get active on TikTok. I won't be dancing, but
get your
but
daughter. She'll do it. It'll be good. It'll be good.
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, www.shesmydaughter.com. We love for people to get involved. We have volunteers who work with us remotely from all over the world doing various projects. And we'd love for you to be a part of what we're doing, or to start your own thing wherever you are in terms of men getting on the front lines in the fight against violence towards women.
Wonderful. All right. All the information that Daryl gave will be in the episode notes. This was just a great conversation. Sadly, a conversation that needs to be had over and over again. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation. And if you need help with anything, when the book comes out, you've got my information. We'll talk again. Any events, anything, I will promote happily. You just let me know what's going on. You've got my information. So it's a quick email and I'm down. That's really it. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to me about this.
Thank you, Harvard. I would say this, man, likewise, in terms of what you're doing. Just the title alone of the work that you're doing is powerful. Even if I never talked to you, but just saw that title, we very rarely see men by the word prize. We don't see that at zero, but we need to know that. If we could internalize that concept, man, our worlds would be so different. And even if we preface this to say, this is for all men, but Black men specifically, through all kinds of ways, we've been downgraded, if you will.
Yes,
And if anything, we need to know, whether it's here outside in the free places, especially in where people are incarcerated, that we're still a prize. So, man, I honor you, my brother. I celebrate you. I will be posting about all of your stuff that comes up. I will stay connected, and thank you for the work that you do, sir.
Oh, it's something that needs to be done, and it's very much for the men. I need men to know that they're special, that they're valuable, and it's important. And when we men value ourselves, when we know how important we are, it sprinkles right down to our girls, to our women. When I know how important I am, then the other human beings, the women in my life, we take care of them too. So we're both doing the same thing. I'm just in a different point, but we take care of us and we'll take care of the women, the fantastic people in our world.
Absolutely.
So it's good. Thank you. I'm going to end this here. Thank you so much. Wonderful conversation. A conversation that needed to be had. It's not the best subject, but it's an important one. I end this podcast every week the same way to remind you how important you are in the lives of the people around you. I'm going to change it a little bit. There are women, you're going to walk by a woman today or tomorrow who's been through some stuff. And she needs to know that all the men in the world are not a party to that negativity. So you need to be a beacon of hope. You need to be a good man. It doesn't even mean that you're protecting her or doing, just in general, just your presence, how you speak to her, how you look at her, how you listen. And that's what we talked about at the beginning, that it is imperative that we're listening. And that works for everything. Be a good man for the women around you. Be a good man for yourself. And you know why you do all this stuff? Because you are amazing. You are a wonderful man. You may not have heard that today, but you're hearing it now. You're good people. You are a wonderful man, and you're the prize. I'll see you next week.